Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to season 2, episode 15 of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is you watching it on YouTube or listening to the audio on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the major podcast platforms. I do appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys, I know a lot of you haven't joined us on Twitch yet or haven't joined the Discord. Make sure you do if you're listening to this after the fact. Today's guest is Alex Landenburg. You guys know him from Kamelot or Cyhra, but he's toured with millions, hundreds, thousands, gajillions of bands, and he's worked with a whole bunch of people. I'm not even exaggerating. Like when you see the list, it's a lot of fucking bands. We get to dive deep into how he started, how he got into drums. He started teaching and what he does for that now, but we dug deep into a lot of different things, and we have a little bit of an exclusive as well. He's working on some stuff outside of drumming, but has to do with the music industry, has to do with streaming platforms specifically. He's got a jewelry company that he started up where he makes pendants and necklaces and stuff out of broken cymbals. I just wanted to give a massive shout out as well to Guilty Gorilla Management for making this possible. Shout out to Julian Gorilla. If you guys don't already know, we have a little thing called Team Unmuted now on Twitch and on Discord. Julian Gorilla is officially Team Unmuted. So if you haven't already, at Julian Gorilla on Instagram and on Twitch. Yeah. So make sure you come down, join us. Thank you guys for checking out this episode, and let's hit the intro. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Alex, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, glad to be here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, my friend. And listen, I'm gonna say this. I have a last name that looks like I lost a game of Scrabble. I've always said that, but I always try to get the guest's last name absolutely correct. Landenburg.
Landenburg. Perfect. That's
Did I say
you got
that
it right.
Awesome. Yeah. There you go. I didn't mess it up. That's a good thing. How you doing, man? How's it going with you?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, of course, I haven't been touring exactly a whole lot these past 18 months or so, like anybody else hasn't. But apart from that, I try to make the best of it, and especially the last few months have been really, really good. Done lots of recordings, lots of practicing, all these things, Yeah. Trying to stay in shape for the tours that will hopefully come next year.
Absolutely. I always try to do this for every episode. Everybody knows you. You're in Kamelot, Cyhra, all the bands you've toured with. We're gonna deep dive into the whole history, but I like to start these things by saying, in your own words, outside of what you do necessarily, could you introduce yourself to the tribe that might not know you?
Yeah, well, okay. Like you said, most people will know me as the drummer of Kamelot or Rhapsody, Luca Turilli's Rhapsody, to be precise. That's a band that I played with for a few years. I have my band Cyhra from Sweden, and I've been playing, with Stratovarius, with Masterplan. I'm a longtime member of Mekong Delta. I played with Annihilator even. So I've done so many things musically. I come from Germany originally. I actually moved back to Germany during the pandemic. I've lived in London for a while in the UK. And other than that, other than music, I'm a big movie and sci-fi nerd, I think you could say. Like I love Star Trek, used to love Star Wars a lot more than I do nowadays.
That was a loaded sentence there.
Let's not talk about it. And or maybe we should. We have a lot of time. And lots of interests, lots of things that I love doing, and whatever, like reading, watching movies, all these things are pretty normal. But yeah, mostly what I'm doing is I play drums.
Let's go back. Let's go back in time. I like to do things chronologically. I don't know. I don't know if you have this. It's a weird itch that I have. I like to start from the very beginning and just kind of go through the journey. what was it that first made you fall in love with music? Before you were a drummer, before any of that stuff, what was your first love when it came to music?
Yeah, I think like our household, like my parents, they used to listen to a lot of music. I have an older brother who just turned 50, and so I was from very little on, there was always music in the house. And I remember specifically the Live Aid 85, and it's, of course, that amazing Queen show. And that just stuck with me. I remember seeing, the band, seeing Freddie, the crowd, like the Wembley Stadium, all of that. And it was so magical. And I think I really, really fell in love with music, just seeing that. Like, you could tell that this is such a huge thing. This is so important. The vibe, the energy, all of it was so great. So I think it was that, to be honest.
Did you understand, like, this is not industry? I know that's a big term for at least a youngin, but like, did you understand that this is something that someone can achieve? Or because when I was growing up and I first started falling in love with music, it really felt like something that was so abstract, something that was so big and far away that it's not something you can do physically. Was it the same for you, or was it like, I'm gonna do that?
That's interesting. I think it was so little at the time that I just thought this was something that people do. Like, it didn't occur to me that this is the rare exception. These four guys up on stage, and because I was really little, and I think that's only when you're older, when you're like 10, 11, 12, when you start realizing, no, people are actually not doing these things, or not very often, at least. So at the point, it seemed like something I didn't think about it, to be honest. I was like, okay, that's what people do. Like, these people exist, it seemed pretty normal to me in a way.
I've done so many of these podcasts where I've talked to creative people from around the world, inside music, outside music and stuff. But one thing that comes as a common thread that I found is people who grew up in musical households tend to not put the stress of making it in music first as their first line of introduction. It's not the first thing they think about, because like you said, you were so young and it was just a thing that happened. Your house was musical. For example, for me, it wasn't a musical household whatsoever. It was me finding it on my own kind of thing, and it felt so unachievable. It's really interesting that
because it was an outside thing, right? For
exactly.
It was like the outside world. It was like a totally different thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's really curious.
It has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
We recently had Kevin Foley from Expedited and a bunch of other bands on the show. He said the exact same thing that you said. It was just around him the whole time. So he just thought this is what the world is.
Yeah, exactly. This is what the world is. Exactly. Yeah.
When did you start to like internalize it and start to think, I'm looking for music that I like? Because there's that initial, God damn it, Queen are amazing and everything sounds amazing. But when was it like, I'm gonna try and find my world within this realm?
That was the whole metal thing. Okay, so because it was a musical household, there was lots of contemporary music, even jazz, classical music, a lot of progressive music. So 70s Genesis, Marillion, all these things, which are great looking back now. I realized that that was like a musical lesson from early on for me, to listen to these things and just taking them in as they were. But it was not necessarily heavy metal. And I remember falling in love with heavy metal as a little kid. Like, I must have been around 9, 10, and it was specifically And Justice for All and Keeper of the Seven Keys. But it's pretty much the same time, 88, 89. And I got them maybe a year later or 2 years later when I was sort of 9, 10, something like that. And it just fascinated me, but it was nothing that that we would play at home. So this suddenly was my thing. and I started playing it. But it was also like, it wasn't like a lot of resistance or anything. Like I didn't have to fight for it. It was just, but still it was my thing. And that's kind of when these were also like the first records that I bought. However, I'm not sure. I think the first record I bought was actually Michael Jackson, Dangerous.
Nice.
I think so. I'm pretty sure because it was either that or Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion 2. I think it was one of the two at the time. They were pretty close to each other when they came out. But yeah, so the rock and especially the metal thing, that was kind of my thing suddenly. That was different.
So you didn't get a lot of what is this devil music kind of reaction from the household, did you? No. It would be great for some funny stories or something, but really none at all. Yeah.
No, not really, not at all actually. No.
There's a lot of I don't know why this is, but there's a lot of Michael Jackson fans in the metal. There's a lot of Michael Jackson fans all around the world, but a lot of metal musicians are obsessed with Michael Jackson. That was kind of their gateway.
Yeah, I think well, musically it's great, right? He was a great artist, great performer. The stuff was extremely well produced, well written, and he had these great bands and shows and everything. And there was a certain rock edge also to it, especially to the parts of bad, but especially to Dangerous, I think. And I think it's, especially for musicians, it's not so far-fetched to like that. Or the whole Thriller album, if you think about it, that's Toto playing on the album, and it's fantastic. So I think it's true. I never really thought about it much, but I don't think then it's that crazy or that unusual. Think of ABBA. It's the same with ABBA. So many people love ABBA, or at least can enjoy it or appreciate it. And that's also not exactly heavy metal. So I think heavy metal people, and especially musicians, are much more open-minded than the regular audience thinks, in a way.
Yeah. And I think because it has that, like, the foundation in rock, it's not like today's pop where you might not even hear a single live instrument in the actual recording. It was
exactly.
It's the foundation's all in rock, and I think that kind of was a good bridge to everything else.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Yeah. I totally agree. Like today's pop music, a lot of it is probably too far removed from anything that has to do with playing an instrument or proper productions or anything. So to get from that kind of music to rock and metal, that's a big stretch. But yeah, back then that was different. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same with Prince. I love Prince. To this day, I love Prince.
Yeah.
And that guy, and also like just a guy was a rock star in a way. I mean, at least he was like one of the biggest music stars. So again, I think that's kind of natural to like that.
Yeah, I always love when people talk about Prince. They're like, listen, there's a lot of people that play music, and then like he was the music.
He was the music. It's unbelievable.
He lived it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way of putting it.
What was the first song or person or album that you remember, like, I'm consuming all of this stuff. I'm falling in love with this music, but I want to start making it at some point?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that was all around the time. I think it was it's not one record. I think it was a time where it was Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden, Black Album, Metallica, Countdown to Extinction, Megadeth. And it was those records where I was like, okay, I want to do this. Like, I want to, and me and my friends, we were putting our first band together very little, like we were 12 years old. And we started playing that, trying to play that stuff, I should say. And I think that was the same time, but it wasn't one record, but it was that period. And then of course, from then on, it was all of these records. Like whenever I was listening to something, it had changed for me, and I started analyzing it. And I think even at that young age that started, and I could never quite go back to just listening to music, which is something that I'm a little bit envious of sometimes. Just being able to listen to music, because I can.
You mean without like breaking it down and analyzing what they're doing and stuff like that?
Exactly. Yeah, I automatically have to do that, and it's nothing I can do about it. Like it's not even. It's just it happens autopilot. But yeah, so that's that, and that happened back then for sure. But I also remember listening to this stuff and thinking, yeah, I want to do this, but at the same time thinking, we will never be able to play like this. I really remember that.
Was it drums from right off the bat?
No,
immediately.
Funnily enough, I started playing guitar when I was little. So 2 years before I started playing drums, I actually had guitar lessons back at the time, acoustic guitar, and but somehow that wasn't, it wasn't as satisfying. And from the moment that I picked up a pair of drumsticks and I sat down behind a drum set, it was completely different. I realized this is something that I was born to do. I can just do this. Like I made big steps very quickly, and it came to me very naturally, and that was beautiful. But I started with guitar, actually.
Yeah, I always loved asking this question because I also started with guitar and then for a brief moment decided to switch to drums, and the reason I don't play drums is because we just couldn't physically have a drum set in the house. It was just too loud. The neighbors, everything was going on. And like the support from the household was wearing thin. What was it like for you back then?
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, first of all. But that unfortunate that this is still happening, and this happens so many times to so many people. And nowadays that's much better with the electronics,
Yeah.
Which are great nowadays to practice at home. But not to. For me, fortunately, I had the support of the family. But I'm sorry. I feel sorry for the neighbors looking back at me now, because I played 4 or 5 hours every day at least, and that must have been really hard for them.
Something changed with your mic settings.
That okay now?
I think it either unplugged or something happened.
Wait, let me try.
There we go.
Actually, now I kind of working now. Is that fine?
Speak
working?
Again? Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Okay. Chat, let me know if the audio is all good for you guys as well.
Yeah, of course. If not, I can just still unplug the microphone. We just have the audio from the iPad.
That might be better, actually. Let's just check that for a second.
Okay, you want to try that now? Okay.
There it is. Perfect. Cool.
Okay, fine.
Sounds great. But yeah, like I was saying, one of the biggest reasons that we physically don't have enough drummers in the Middle East because people just don't have the opportunity. Starting off, they fall in love with the instrument. They try to get into it, but it's just one of those things that you can't just have in your room. At least back in my olden days. Have in your room and practice. That's why there aren't too many drummers out here.
Yeah, I hear you. And I mean, the thing is that I grew up on the countryside, basically, right? And in so many ways, I hated that as a kid. But of course, looking back at it now, that of course made it so much easier for me to play the drums. So I think so, at least. Had we lived in an apartment like in the city, it would have been too much, I guess. But we had our own house, and there was like a little bit of space around it, and I guess that made it just bearable for the neighbors. So it made it just possible,
Yeah. I have to ask this. Because there's two extremes to this answer. It's either really, really good or really, really bad.
Okay.
What was the first band name?
Okay, the first band name is great. So I'll tell you, first band name was Blind Faith, right? That was our first band. And because we didn't, there was no Google and there was no nothing. And we were uneducated young kids. So we didn't know Blind Faith with Ginger Baker and Eric Clapton and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like having a second Slayer. Like it's just you didn't know it existed. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, and nobody told us, and because I don't think people took it too seriously, and then we kind of changed that to Angel's Cry at some point. after the Angra album with my late friend Andre Matos. And technically this band still exists because we kind of started getting back together during the pandemic, and we're thinking of, you know, re-recording some of our old stuff. So
wow.
Yeah.
So how long ago was this? How old were you guys?
Yeah, well, the thing is, like I said, we started around 12, and then around 14, 15, we became quite serious about it. Mm-hmm. And started putting out our first demos 15, 16. And there's 2 albums that we put out, or actually we didn't put them out. That's the problem. We were not able to get a record deal at the time. We had no connections, like it just didn't work out. But we have 2 full records that are basically sitting on the shelf from 99 and 2002.
Wow.
So we're thinking of re-recording them and then having like, making it maybe like a bit of a documentary and showing like how we're taking this stuff now from back then, like how much we've grown, hopefully, as musicians, and how we're changing things and why we're changing things. And, you know, we hope we can do this. Like, we hope we can use the time during this pandemic to do this. Yeah. We're
That's
working
amazing.
on
That
I think it would be really interesting. Yeah.
Hearing the songs from 99 and 2002, do you look back and go, actually this young Alex was pretty good back then, or do you think I'm gonna change a bunch of things?
No, that's the thing. Like, obviously we will change some things, but it's minor stuff. And no, I'm actually really proud of these recordings, and that's the whole. And also the others, like my, you know, fellow bandmates, and they're all great musicians. And I think it was great what we did at the time. A little bit inexperienced, but yeah, no, it's fantastic, and that's why I would actually like. Anyways, whatever we're doing with it, we're going to put out the original as well, because it's going to be great for people to, or interesting for people to see the original material as well. Or
Absolutely.
Hear it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd love to see and hear that. That's something that
you posted for sure.
Yeah. We have, by the way, if you guys want a link to Alex, if you do !guest in the chat, you'll get a link to his Instagram and the YouTube channels through there. Everything's through there. So !guest, go follow, do all the good stuff. I wanted I love asking this question because it's always so different for different musicians, different creators in general. What was the moment where it went from I do this cool thing with a bunch of my friends to I want to be a musician? Like, I am a musician. This is what I'm going to do for life.
This happened extremely early on. So honestly, in a way, this happened during our first concert in 93, when we were actually still super little, but being on stage. And of course, it was a typical thing. It was like 60 people in the audience, and it was mostly families, you know, like mostly our families, like, and friends. But being on stage was just the biggest thing in the world. And I knew I wanted to do this for real. And that's what kept me ever since. And I never questioned it, to be honest. It's kind of weird looking back at it now, but I never really paid attention to people telling me, oh yeah, it's going to be difficult, and you should learn a real job first or whatever. Like, I didn't even listen to that stuff. So I didn't even hear it because I just didn't care. I knew I wanted to do this. And so I just, you know, kept working on it and, you know, just did my thing. So I knew I wanted to do it. Now the question, at what point I knew this could be a job, that's a little bit different, but that was also like a process. So right when I got off school, I started teaching drums, and I had 40, 50 students a week kind of quickly, and I was making money with it, and
wow,
could support myself, you know, in that way. So I don't know, like it was never really a question, should I be doing this? You know, like I always knew I would be doing this.
And that's amazing. It's amazing that you started teaching so young as well, right out of school. What was it a suggestion from someone? You're good at this. Maybe you should teach. Like, how did you come up with that? Because
yeah,
high school kids aren't thinking about how to sustain themselves right away, especially not the ones that I know that were wanting to tour and wanting to go out and into the music industry kind of thing. Where did that initiative come from?
Well, I gave well, it was my idea. Like I knew I had to have. That was basically the job, right? Like the goal was becoming a rock star, and like touring and all that. But I wasn't crazy. I knew that this would not be an easy task, and that this could take some time. Actually, I still wasn't questioning it, but I knew it would take some time, or it could take some time. So the plan was to make a living teaching in the meantime. So I contacted a friend that ran a school, great drummer, in Germany. Pietro Amalia is his name. He used to play for big pop acts, and he was on TV and all that. And like he was like the guy we were looking up to. Mm-hmm. And he ran this school, and I was just calling him up, and he said, "Hey, maybe I can teach a little bit at your place." And he said, "Hey, come over. We'll have a talk." And we talked about it. We checked some things like my technique, my sight reading, a little bit of that. And then he threw me into the cold water. And of course, it was kind of weird because I was only 20 years old at the time, 21 maybe, no, 20. And some of the kids that I was teaching were my age or just a little bit younger, 15, 16. So it's kind of hard to command the authority in that moment. But yeah, I learned, it all felt very natural and happened really quickly for me. So it was a great learning experience, to be honest. Teaching can be a great learning experience.
I was just about to say, not only teaching, not only learning the actual subject you're teaching or the actual craft that you're passing on, but like you said, you're dealing with people that are your age, where their hierarchy is a little different. There's communication skills involved. There's you're 20 making money already, just sustaining yourself. There's so many different like life skills that go into that one experience. It's a little crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was like a huge school for me too. And but yeah, the way we did it was correct because the boss, like Pietro, he was always like in the back in case there were questions or anything. Like he was not just like throwing a kid in there, and like it was very controlled. But like I said, at that time I had practiced so much, and my reading was quite okay, and I don't know, it's just I knew I could do it. But it's still something different. Like teaching, like you said, it's all about these social skills as well, trying to motivate people to practice, and it was a really, really interesting experience. And it led to many of the cool things that happened later. Basically, my first real job with Annihilator was a direct result of me teaching a student from Canada, a good friend of mine, Chris Stevenson. So, one thing led to another there.
Wow. Okay. I was going to ask you, was there ever a moment while teaching where you thought, oh, this is either the student or yourself, like this is the start of something big? So what happened exactly? How did that happen? How did the Annihilator happen?
Well, yeah, first of all, to be honest, so I was teaching and it was great and we were having a lot of fun, but I remember being 25 or just turning 25 and I was like, shit, I need to make it. I need to go, like, I have to have my break, and I don't want to end up being just a drum teacher, right? And I started getting a little bit nervous about it. I remember that clearly. And looking back at it now, knowing that everything turned out the way it did, that's fine. I'm sometimes thinking, I wish I could have enjoyed it even a bit more back then, because it was so much fun. But I was so concerned about my career. I was like, I need to make this big step. Something needs to happen, like this can't be my future, like forever, right? And so what happened there is, it was crazy actually. So Chris's dad was a pilot for the Canadian forces, and they were stationed in Germany. So the family was there, and they were looking for somebody to teach their kid drums. And naturally, the kid being into heavy metal and the student speaking English, I was a natural choice. So I started teaching Chris, and that was great. And we became friends with the family and all that. It was absolutely fantastic. And then the family went back to Canada a few years later. And at the end of 2006, I think, something like that, Chris called me and said, hey, I just ran into Jeff Waters from Annihilator, and he needs a drummer for a tour urgently. Funny thing is that Chris and I, we actually did a lot of Annihilator during the lessons, because a lot of the Annihilator material, especially the ones that start with Mike Mangini, is excellent drum practice. Yeah. Those are great drum parts, and you're learning a lot of things that you need to know for your drumming if you just practice those songs. So we did a lot of these already, and so he asked me, and I did a audition tape. Like it was just at the start of YouTube, but nothing was like today. So I actually did a DVD and sent it per mail. Like,
oh wow, yeah.
It's crazy.
The good old days.
Yeah. And just when I wasn't thinking much about it anymore, I got the call. Waters called, and he was like, "Hey, you're like," I remember him saying it. He said, "You're like a baby Mangini." He told me, which was great. And I want you to come over, and I want you to tour with us. And that's how it happened. And I toured with Annihilator, played about something close to 50 shows with them, and for one touring cycle. And then suddenly, I was on the map, and suddenly I got other jobs and other offers, So because that's the thing, you need to get your foot in the door, and that wasn't for me,
100%. And what was the feeling you got? You've been basically studying this band's drums.
Yeah.
You've been also teaching this band's work.
Yeah.
And then through a series of different events, you get a call. Hey, we want you here. We want you to be right here, right now. Thank you, whoever changed the lights. We want you to be right here, right now, and you're going to be playing in this band. What was the feeling, first and foremost?
Oh man, it was unbelievable. It was completely overwhelming, in a good way, And it was like it was more like finally, this is happening, and I can't believe it's happening like this, honestly. And I was just so excited and looking forward to, meeting with the band and touring with them. And I remember thinking, like, oh yeah, touring. That was going to be my first proper tour. I did some touring before, filling in, so I had a little bit of experience. And I remember being a little bit nervous about the whole touring thing back then. And somebody told me something really smart. He said, who was it? I can't remember who it was, but they said, don't go crazy about it. It's just, it's like just a series of individual shows. Like, you would not be nervous about an individual show. And this is just a string of individual shows. That's all. Nice.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course, that's it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And that was great. That's fantastic.
Jumping from having done a couple of tours like that to a well-oiled machine like Annihilator back then, and jumping headfirst into that stuff, there must have been a massive learning curve. Not only regarding the actual touring and pacing or any of that stuff, but just like I said, going back to teaching how to deal with people. You're in everyone's face all the time. That it must have been a massive learning curve.
Massive, yeah. I mean, that's even an understatement. Like, it was life-changing. And in a way, the thing is, I'm not telling any secrets here. Like, especially at the time, Jeff was not easy to work with. He's a very demanding band leader in a very good way, though. He just asks a lot of his musicians, and that's why the band is always top-notch. And so the level was extremely high, and I had to play at my very best every night, and I had to take care of every little nuance. Everything had to be perfect, or otherwise Jeff would not be happy. And we had talks after every show where we would go over the whole show and in detail. and he's, like I said, he's very demanding. Like he did that with everybody in the band, but it was so crazy good in a way, and in a way everything afterwards was easy in comparison for me, because I started like that. This was like serious, 100% serious right away. It was like no drinking, no partying, no nothing involved. It was all about the show and the perfection in it. And it was a bit over my head in the beginning, to be honest, but I grew into it quickly. And like you said, it was like massive learning experience. So it was probably the best start I could have had, you know? And funnily enough, even Mangini says the same thing. Mangini even had, you know, like it was like really, really difficult for him touring with Annihilator at first. I mean, because you're not used to playing for somebody who's so demanding.
Yeah.
But it was great. It's a good thing. It was great.
Yeah, I can imagine like someone asking that much of you, especially at that age, and like with the shock of just being on the road with that band and stuff. It must have been exciting as much as it is nerve-wracking. Like you just have to also manage not breaking at some points, if that's true.
Oh yeah, absolutely, of course. Yeah, absolutely, I had to. And you see, everything up until that point was like, you know, how to describe that. I think a lot of, you know, football, soccer players, or, you know, have similar, or sports people have similar experiences. You're kind of the king in your town when you grow up, because you're the talented kid from there, and, you know, you're the one where everybody says, hey, this guy's gonna make it, and look at the kid, and everything is fantastic, and everybody loves you. And then when you get into the real world, none of that matters anymore. You're just like expected to be great. It's not it's not like a big deal anymore. Like, oh, the kid is great. No, you have to be great. Yeah. Otherwise you would not be here. So there's all these, it's just a whole different thing. Like the expectations and everything, it's just everything switched completely. And that was really, really interesting. You know? So
you said that opportunity with that particular series of events led to all this, and then that's when your name was on the map. Everybody kind of knew. When did you realize, like, shit, people are noticing?
Like it's kind of hard to say. Again, like these things happen, you know, like in steps, and they don't happen overnight or suddenly. Like it's a progression, and I noticed like that in Germany things had changed immediately. Like obvious stuff, like I had requests for interviews in drum magazines and these things, and that stuff happened, and I suddenly had my first real proper drum endorsement. All these things happened, and German acts, like a band from Germany, Axis, I played with them for a while. They contacted me. Mikko and Delta contacted me, so this changed. But I think when I landed the gig with Stratovarius, when I was helping out for them, when Jörg got sick, unfortunately back then, that's when I realized I was really, it became an international thing. It was just not like a local thing anymore, but I was on the map in the scene.
Let's drop some names, because the list is big. The list of people you've worked with is massive. So who since Annihilator, the Stratovarius, what else kind of session work or touring work have you done with big names?
Yeah, well, I'd say the biggest names probably are Stratovarius. Then right after Stratovarius, I played with Symphonia, which was not like a big band, like if you look back at it now, but it was supposed to be like this. This super group with Andre Matos, Timo Tolkki, Jari Kainulainen, like it was supposed to be, I think, the next Stratovarius sort of thing. So after coming from Stratovarius, I immediately played with Timo Tolkki and Andre Matos, and we toured South America, and Andre, especially in Brazil, is like, was like a god. So that was like pretty incredible to play with him there. From then on, I played with them Masterplan. I played a little bit with them. Then the Rhapsody thing happened, Luca Turilli's Rhapsody. That was the thing that kept me busy for a few years. And then of course Kamelot, and these are the biggest things. And then I've done so much session work and, you know, one-offs. I played with Bonfire in Germany, classic rock act in Germany. Like I said, Axis. So, and probably tons of things I'm not even thinking about right now.
There's a massive kind of difference between starting a band from scratch or working with a band that's a bit smaller and working your way up than plugging into a machine that's already rolling.
Absolutely.
Which one's harder? Because they both seem like they have their own unique ups and downs.
Oh, they have their own both unique set of difficulties, you know.
Yeah.
They're difficult in very different ways. So of course, like if you join an established band, well, they kind of did all the work for you, like getting there to that point. But at the same time, you're filling somebody's shoes, and there's expectations.
Yeah.
So at the very least, there's like musical expectations, and there's like a certain framework that's there. You can't just do whatever you want, not because anybody's telling you not to, but because the music just doesn't allow it, or is not asking for something that's too drastically different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for instance, now that I joined Kamelot, and I'm just, you know, finishing the recordings for my first studio album with them, even though I'm playing with them for 4 years now, close to 4 years. And like, you have to take into, you know, account everything that's been before, and you can't just reinvent the whole thing. There's a certain, you know, frame, like I said, in which you can move and you can do little things here and there, but there's a style, and you cannot like just play whatever you feel like.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's difficult. It's extremely difficult. On top of it, if the fans are attached to the person that you're replacing, I was kind of lucky with that. It was the weirdest situation with Stratovarius, to be honest. Not because of the fans, but because of the whole situation. Because Jörg was sick. He had thyroid cancer at the time,
mm-hmm.
and we didn't know whether he was coming back, and we didn't know like how it would turn out. So it was a weird feeling to replace him because of that. You know, like it didn't feel 100% right. From the moment we knew he would be okay, that was a different thing. But that was kind of weird for a little while there. And unfortunately, you know, he recovered completely and he came back to the band for a while. But I don't know, like if you think of situations like, if you look at what happened in Dream Theater, like how hard it was for many fans to accept Mangini in the first couple of years, you know?
To this day, it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this can be extremely difficult because, yeah, I mean, that's fans, you know, they're attached to certain people, which is a good thing in a way, but you should never like take it out on the wrong person. You know, the guy that or the girl that replaces somebody, it's not their fault, you know, like they're just getting into the situation. Everything that's happened before is the problem, but you know, somebody has to continue.
Dude, I agree with you 100%, and 1,000% of the time, I always say, at least they're keeping the catalog alive. It regardless of who's you know, behind the kit, on the vocals, on the guitars, whatever's happening, they're keeping the music that you love alive and keeping it going. Why would you not want to support something like that because you know, someone had to leave? I remember specifically the case with us was we had this conversation with the guys from Sepultura.
Oh yeah.
And fans from around the world still saying you know, Max versus Derek Green, and it's like, it's been 30 years, you guys. Yeah. It's been a long time. It's not about who's better, who's worse. It's just go see the band for what it is, and
exactly.
It's very interesting to see that mentality.
Of course, and especially it's not like Derek kicked out Max, you know, like so that's the thing, you know, like you should not take it out on the wrong people. But and then at the same time, of course, I understand fans because I'm a fan too, and I get that, and you know, it's like it's a weird thing. it seems to be really hard on the first person who has to replace somebody. Like after that, people are kind of getting used to the idea, of that position switching, But if you're the first guy that has to replace somebody, that's weird,
Yeah.
But okay, it happens sometimes. So, but of course, then bringing a band up, like building a band from zero, that's different. And it's difficult for different reasons. And I'd say it's more difficult, of course, especially nowadays. Because there's just so much of it. There's so many bands, and it's not just the bands. There's so much media and entertainment that we're competing with. You're not just competing with other bands. You're competing with Netflix. You're competing with the computer games. Yeah. Anything, you're asking for the attention of people and the time of people. And there's so much people can do nowadays. Unfortunately, it's a good thing. But if you think about it, like, especially with my parents, when they told me about when they would go out and buy like the latest Beatles record, let's say, right? That was a big thing. People bought it and they were sitting down and they were meeting with friends to listen to it, And I mean, and of course I remember like doing the same thing. We would buy an album and the friends and I, we would gather and listen to that album. And this kind of attention that we were giving and those people were giving to music, that's it's rare these days. Yeah. And that's not because people have changed so much. It's because of the circumstances. It's because we are fighting, or we are having so much competition to start with. And then in that small window that we have, like the little bit of attention that we get from people from music, you are competing with, first of all, 50 years of rock music or something like that, that's already there. Yeah. And like hundreds and thousands of acts. So you have to kind of stand out, and that's getting harder and harder. Like for Kiss in the 70s, it was enough to paint their face a little bit, Yeah. That was enough to stand. And I'm not knocking them. I'm a fan. I'm not saying they were not a good band, but what I'm trying to say is that was enough to stand out, And yeah, it's getting harder.
When you put it that way, you think of all the different levels of, like you said, like the currency is attention now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And you're competing against all these different things, driving down the, even Spotify, when you open it while you're listening to bands, it's trying to suggest other bands to you. So actually reminded me, a couple of days ago, we were on the Discord, just having a conversation with the tribe, and someone was saying, I miss turning the pages of the booklet, just reading the lyrics and seeing who wrote what, and all of that is very different now. Like the actual exchange between musician and consumer or listener is so different right now.
Exactly. And to be honest, like in the whole thing, I think we'll talk about this more in a bit, but my biggest concern isn't actually even the money, even though the money is horrible in streaming, and this is a big problem where the money generally is horrible in music, and this is a big problem for people who are trying to make a living of it. But my biggest concern is still for the music itself. Because the problem is, with the whole world at your fingertip, you are not likely to give a whole lot of attention and time to something that doesn't grab you immediately. Yeah. And this leads to music being, like all music being composed as if it was supposed to be a radio single in a way, which is not good. Yeah. If you think about it, when people still bought a record and they paid whatever, like 15 euros, I can't even remember, but they paid money for it. And they didn't immediately like it. They would still give it a couple spins, like, okay, I paid money for this. I want to see, like, I want to give it some time, and that's important. And especially for music that's a little different, or that builds a little bit, or is a little more interesting or difficult, you actually need to take the time. Now the problem is, if you're streaming music, you can just click, like, with the push of your finger, you can go to the next song. So I think it changes the way we're looking at music, or people are looking at music, and not for the better. It's and it's killing the album as well. Yeah. An album is such a great art form, because a certain song might have a completely different effect depending on where it is on an album. And that's why we used to spend so much time thinking about that.
The track list is one of the most important things.
Yeah. It's like, and let's say like you have like a nice little ballad, like just a little bit of acoustic guitar, piano, and vocals. That might be absolutely amazing at the end of a record, but the whole record is like bang on heavy. And suddenly you have this thing that's different, and that creates a different mood. And that doesn't work anymore if you're streaming stuff randomly.
Yeah.
And suddenly this song might not have an effect at all anymore. But again, it's a bit boring, I don't really like it. Let's click next,
Yeah.
So that's another problem. And this is the thing. It's not like it's so easy to start to sound like a really old person because you're just constantly complaining about these things. But that's not what I mean. I'm just really concerned about the art, about the music itself, because I can see these changes because I've been around long enough.
I feel having talked to a lot of people, and especially because we have the chat open right now, I see Rami Lebmetal saying, give it one more spin. Exactly. Let it grow. Rizir saying, interesting point. Krager saying, I still buy CDs and vinyl because of wanting the physical copy to hold in my hands, to appreciate the content and the artwork. You don't get that with streaming and downloads, especially on Spotify. I love my art and artists. I'll always buy my CDs. Yeah, there's a lot of different. I feel like alternative music listeners, alternative music fans, not the guy that knows his music just because it's on the radio. Like I like to say the bin diver. Back in the day at the record store, I'd be in the bin just trying to find that gold gem. Those guys don't necessarily just cave to whatever's been thrown at them. They want to go for the deep dives. They like to pay a little extra. The Tool fan, for example, like Derpy said, yeah, it's not a lot of modern mediums cater to that alternative kind of listener.
Yeah, exactly, and that's actually a big problem in a way, because the technology is here. It's not like we can make it disappear and go back to the way things were. So we have to. One has to wonder how we're actually going about this, like for real. It's very similar with movies if you think about it, because home cinema systems and all that have become so great that people only tend to go to the movies, not even talking about the pandemic now, which has been another problem, but they only tend to go to movies that are like, very action heavy with a lot of, there has to be like an explosion every 5 seconds and lots of CGI and all that. Otherwise, like, it's not worth going to see the movie at the theater.
Yeah.
But that leads to only such movies being produced.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly everything is only Marvel and only Star Wars. And I don't mind having that as long as you have the other thing as well.
Yeah.
But
wow.
Yeah.
That's a great fucking point. I didn't even think about that. That's very true. Just ask a question that I think we could use as a little gateway to talk about what other things outside of playing music that you've been working on. He says, in your opinion, how should bands release their music today to reach their audience?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I think, having said that, as much as I regret the album being basically that in a way, right? Like, I think it's just something that we have to kind of accept for now. And especially if you're an up and coming band, I think it's most beneficial to release individual songs almost, mm-hmm. because then you can have like your social media campaign for every song. You can remind people of your band and your music with a new song every time. You don't, because if it's about the same album, you feel like you're beating a dead horse after a while, and people get annoyed and all that. And this way you can kind of bring yourself back to the attention and have like a new release every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not thinking this is great because, like I said, I'm a huge album fan, and I think people should still put them out. But if you're up and coming, I think it might be best to go for individual songs and try to get the attention first of all. And Yeah, like interestingly enough, I didn't know we were talking so much about streaming and all that, but it's the whole situation is it's so difficult, and so difficult, especially for, like you said, for our genre, for anything that's in a niche, basically. So that a friend and I, we're talking about this so much, and we actually are trying to put out or trying to create a new streaming service. So what we're working on right now is a streaming service that's basically that's catering to the rock and metal audience, and that's built around that genre and featuring bands and music from that genre specifically. And because the reason for that is that with the current system that we have, like if you look at the big ones, Spotify, Apple Music, all that, it favors the really, really big acts that are getting a lot of streams. But it's very bad for the niche because of the way that the money is distributed. Because the money is distributed from the same pot. So if you're a rock fan and you're listening, or a metal fan, you're listening to your bands, and you listen like a normal person would, whatever, like a couple of 100 songs per month, you are basically financing millions of streams in other genres that have way more streams, and that needs to be paid to these artists. So it's very bad for actually rock and metal acts the way it is right now. So we're trying to change that with a different distribution system.
First of all, that's absolutely amazing. The fact that there's a genre specific thing that you guys are focusing on. But did this come out of like frustration as a consumer and as an artist? Where was this born out of? It's just something that you guys felt like you had to do?
Yeah, I'd say necessity. Like frustration sounds negative. Of course, it is frustrating, right? But I'd say it's more necessity. So the thing is, I'm working on this with a friend who has been extremely successful with building apps, for the mobile market, and he did like some work in the AI field and has made real amazing progress there. So he knows what he's doing. Like, because I could not just build a streaming service. Like I'm a drummer, but I know like the music industry, and I know the problems that we as musicians have, and that I as a fan still have of that kind of music. So we tried to bring that together, and so we were talking about these things, about these issues, and one thing led to another. Like the original idea was to do a user-specific streaming service, meaning that whatever you are listening to, your money goes there, right? So you're only listening to one band in a month. Everything like that we can take from you, distribute from your money goes to that one particular act. It turned out that this was not easy to do that because of various reasons, but basically it's kind of hard to change the whole industry, and they have a certain way of doing things. So that was not possible for now. And the next step was a genre-specific thing. Like, okay, if we cannot do it user-specific, at least we can try to detach a genre and keep the money in that genre. And this is what we're trying to do now. We're working on this now. It's a massive undertaking. And it's been keeping me really, really busy.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I think we'll put out more about this, like some, more specific info and more detailed info about it soon. And because we are also like maybe I'm putting out too much already, but because like we're still trying to do it, and there's like a lot of obstacles still. But we would actually like to try to do it in a way that the fans can pick their favorite band, and a certain portion of their monthly fee goes to that band directly.
Oh,
so
wow!
It's kind of a little bit like a Patreon idea there in there as well.
Yeah. And
what's super important, we also want to actually encourage to still buy physical and all that. This should not be an alternative to buying music. This should just be an alternative to the streaming services that are out there. and give people a chance to use a convenient streaming service, knowingly that the money will actually go to the artists that they want to support, and not to whatever, like not to some hip hop artist nobody's ever heard about, you know?
Yeah. That's absolutely amazing. And by the way, chat, everybody that's in there, I just started a poll, rock/metal specific streaming services. Keep in mind that revenues and stuff like that is distributed fairly to the artist, and then you get to vote yes or no in the poll right now. And I'm curious what you guys are thinking, because we're a rock and metal community here. I want to see what you guys think. It's like you said, it's got to be an undertaking and a half kind of thing to get this up and running, and I can't even imagine the logistics of physically being able to put that kind of stuff out. But what has been, just from like people around you, friends, family, a response when you tell them what you guys are working on?
Oh, they love it, and everybody loves the idea. Everybody's actually crazy about it, because they also know, my business partner, they know the people that are involved and how serious they are, and how, much they know about the whole subject. Because at first it sounds completely crazy and manic. It would be if I tried to do this on my own, for sure. I wouldn't try it on my own, to be honest, But knowing that we have the technical capabilities, and also like enough, money at first and all that, that's certainly going to help. And let's hope for the best. Like I said, we'll talk about this more really, really soon. Hopefully we can make it work. And if we can make it work, it all depends also on the bands and the fans, if they can and if they want to support it, because that's what it ultimately comes down to. We can put out a service, but if nobody uses it, it's not going to work. But the idea is that we are actually offering the whole music market. Mm-hmm. So you can listen to stuff other than rock and metal. Obviously, you can listen to anything on it. We don't want to restrict it. Yeah. The idea is that we are catering to a specific audience, and because of that, they will mostly listen to our genre. Yeah. And as long as that's the case, that's fine, Yeah.
That feeding the Spotify algorithm gods to try and recommend the new metal album is a painstaking process. You have to be there for days and weeks, making sure that you like everything you do like, for them to actually suggest something that might be in the same realm. So something like that is, I'm 100% down. I'm
So like I said,
down for that kind of stuff.
This is still in the works, and at this point, maybe 2 months from now, we know it's going to happen, and then I would have been a bit more detailed about it and all that. But for now, we'll see. We are positive that we can make it work. But until I don't want to jinx it. I was actually a bit hesitant to talk about it, but we have to talk about it at some point. Yeah. Let's just hope for the best. Because that's been a rule of thumb for me. I usually don't talk about things that are not 100% certain. Because that's something that you learn as a musician, that there's a lot of talk. And I know things are happening when I'm on a tour bus or when I'm in a plane flying to a show. Then I'm like, okay, I think this is happening. Mm-hmm. And until then, I'm a bit cautious. So I was a bit hesitant, but let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best.
Everybody in the chat, knock on wood, you guys. Everybody simultaneously knock on your tables right now. It's crazy to think how far things have come in the last 10 years when it comes to, not only the way we consume music, the way people are promoted, albums are dropped. You're talking about, singles versus albums. And I know that you're well versed in the social media realm. Your YouTube's up and running. You got the Instagram up and running. Your Facebook's active. Were you always aware that this is the route a musician needs to take? Because I've talked to people even younger than myself that are like, I don't need an Instagram as a musician. I just do my music. But For me, I don't know. Correct me if you think otherwise, but they go hand in hand these days.
Oh, absolutely, of course. I mean, there's no way around it. Like, if you're not on social media, you are not happening, unfortunately. And you see, the thing is, I don't necessarily like that, and I'm not a huge fan of it, of many of the aspects. But it's always the same thing in the end. It's never the thing that's inherently good or bad. It's what we do with it, as a society. So I don't think social media is a bad thing, not at all. I think it's a great thing. It connects the world. It gives people a chance to put their stuff out without filters, and they can just do, be creative and all that. All of these things are absolutely incredible if you think about it. They're fantastic. But it has downsides. And there's no way around it. Like, it's a visual medium, and we are visual people. Like, we like to look at things, and this is a problem. Like, if the way somebody looks is becoming more important than what they can do as a musician, then that's not good for the music.
Yeah.
It's been like that even with music videos back in the day. But now this is actually getting to a level where it's kind of a bit too much, in my opinion, and all these, looks and the way you present yourself is becoming more important almost than the talent and the actual work you put into it. And then there's so many ways of actually, cheating in a way, like editing your performances and editing your pictures and videos and all that to an extent that I sometimes catch myself like not being interested at all, because by default I'm almost thinking this is touched up and this is edited. Like, it just doesn't interest me, and this is not a good thing. But what can you do about it? Like, well, I can tell you what you can do about it. Like, first of all, this is not a really, really important thing, because a lot of people are complaining about that. But complaining about it doesn't get you anywhere. Like, you have to complain about it maybe in the beginning to get aware, or like be aware of a problem and make it a topic. But that's not going to change anything. So I'd say one thing: if you want to change the content that's on social media, then you should try as a person to comment and like the content that you like. It sounds stupid in a way, but it's not, because if you don't interact with content with the kind of content that you want to see, then the algorithm is just gonna ignore that content because there's no interaction. Like, let me give you like a real example here, like real world example. Let's say there's drum videos on YouTube of colleagues of mine, esteemed colleagues, great drummers, right? When I'm watching the video, I'm like, okay, I don't need to tell this guy that he's a great drummer. That's like, it's almost like weird telling that person. Let's say Marco Miniman. Yeah. Like, I don't feel like I have to comment, great playing, Marco, because that's a joke. Of course he's playing great because he's Marco Miniman. But because I'm not doing that, there's no interaction, right? And the YouTube algorithm doesn't know why I'm not commenting. It just recognizes I'm not commenting and I'm not liking or whatever. Like, I'm not reacting to it. And then it's like whatever, like some 5-year-old Chinese girl and 10,000 people are commenting, oh, that's so cute, that's so nice, whatever. The problem is the algorithm is going to think this thing is important, people are reacting to it, this thing is not, so I'm not going to show this thing to people. And it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So you should really, I think, make it a point and just be active on your friends' social media, like your fellow musicians, your fellow drummers, guitarists. We're at this point where everybody needs the interaction, no matter how famous they are, because the algorithm doesn't understand they're famous. So like, if there's content that you want to see, make sure you are interacting with that kind of content to make it more visible.
Absolutely.
I guess.
Absolutely. And to double down on that, I know Julian mentioned it earlier. We have our own Discord server where, you know, a bunch of the people from around the world hang out. It's like a forum kind of section. What we do on that Discord server, we have a couple of different channels where it's like, show us your stuff. Great. And we've had conversations before within the community, within the tribe, where people say, I actually don't listen to this genre of music, or I actually don't care about drum videos. I actually don't do that. But I would go and comment and like it as part of this community, just to make sure that they get that interaction as someone that you know is up and coming and needs that interaction. So I just want to shout out to you, tribe. Look at you guys. See, we're getting advice that you guys have already been doing. It's fucking cool.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. But yeah, like I said, it's something that you have to be aware of, man, and you have to think about, because it's not intuitive. Like I said, I'm hesitant to go on a Mike Mangini video and say, hey, great playing, Mike. Like, you know, like, it's like, why? Everybody knows he's playing great, right? And this is the kind of mindset that leads to too little interaction in a way. And yeah, like, we're all guilty of that. So when you started, like, you know, uploading videos on YouTube, early days of Instagram, that kind of stuff, did you instinctively think about this stuff, like algorithm, what it was about, all that stuff, or is this just years of experiencing, you know, the other side of the coin? It's just years of experience, and honestly, it's been this pandemic where I, just like anybody else, was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Okay, you know what? I have this YouTube channel that I haven't really been, you know, working on a whole lot, and I'll take some time now for it. And then I realized how difficult this is nowadays. Like, how hard it is to get into recommendations, to get views and all that. And it's weird. And it seems to be like, some people do well on one kind of social media, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing well on others. Like, you can find people that are really good, doing well on Instagram, and they're not really visible on YouTube. So it also might be a good thing to kind of focus on one thing where it seems to work for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't aware of that at all.
Or the forsaken TikTok. I always see Instagram profiles with a couple of hundred followers, and they say 12 million on TikTok in the bio, and I'm like, how does that translate? What does that even mean? I'm too old for this shit.
No, tell me about it. And of course, TikTok. Like, I'm not talking starting on TikTok, but like, I mean, it's kind of, at what point are you too old for something? And it's kind of painful, but like, to be honest, when I look at TikTok, I'm like, what is this? Like, why did we need this? Like, who needs this? You know, how did it come to this? And but it's there, and I'm to be honest, I'm concerned, or I should almost say afraid, that this is going to be super important a couple of years from now. So it's going to be just as bad to not be active on TikTok as not being active on Instagram in a social media kind of way. I mean, but I don't really feel like doing it. And I don't know, like, there's a certain, of course you don't have to, like, you have to ask yourself, you know, do I really need to do this or not? But the problem is, I'm at this point where I can say I'm not doing TikTok, and it's not gonna hurt my career. But I'm really sorry for up and coming artists. Like, I have some younger drummer friends who are fantastic drummers, great players, and they're putting out great stuff, and nobody cares. Like, they're not getting views or anything, and it's weird. It's not a good thing.
We had a guest on 2 episodes ago called Nick Nocturnal. He's a million plus followers between Instagram and YouTube. He's a Twitch streamer that has insane numbers. He's a guitar player primarily, but he does rock and metal content. And he's such a guitar player. He's also very young. Such a guitar player that he's never owned an amp, like a YouTube guitar player. When he was put into a competition, and he said one of the weirdest things was to try and dial his tone in a real life amp and get used to standing up and playing.
Okay.
And even this guy, when we had him on the show, was saying TikTok freaks him out because he's so worried about that's the short attention span consumption that even his 10-minute YouTube video is too fucking long at this point. People skip Instagram stories. And it's 15 seconds. So who's going to sit around and watch a 10-minute video? Or like us, this is one of the reasons I made the podcast as long as it is. It's like, you want to have a good conversation. It's not going to finish in 5 minutes. It's going to be a couple of hours.
Exactly. Yeah, this is like a really alarming thing. This trend of everything becoming shorter and shorter. And it's just not good, because you see there's like a lot of musical qualities. If you think of like playing a musical instrument that cannot really be displayed on a phone in 15 or 30 seconds. Like let's say you're developing a theme or something, right? Like doing like real musical stuff, working with dynamics and stuff. None of that translates well to a cell phone 30-second video. So the problem is, it kind of favors party tricks. Whatever, like extremely fast guitar playing or drumming, but none other than that. Like just stuff that's like immediately grabbing your attention. And that's not always the most musical stuff. But you see, the funny thing is, in a way, these are all the same problems.
Yeah.
So the same problem we have with music, people not willing to give music enough time. It's the same thing also on social media with just drumming or just playing guitar. There's not enough attention for you to do stuff that requires attention.
100%. Yeah.
It's not a good thing, but yeah.
It is a crazy leaps and bounds digital world. And I know you guys don't have to tell me in the chat. They always say I sound old as fuck every time I say this, but it is like I know I'm streaming live on Twitch, and all of this happened in the last like 10 months. I didn't know any of this shit before. So it is pretty crazy. It always blows my mind. And speaking of the digital world, Rami has a question in the question box. I just want to shout Rami out, by the way. He's from lebmetal.com, Lebanese metal forum, keeping the scene alive in the Middle East. He's asking, do you think electric drums could completely replace acoustic in the future?
No, I don't think so. I think electric drums, like the electric guitar didn't replace the acoustic guitar, and keyboards didn't replace a grand piano or something. Electric drums are becoming better and better and better. And actually, I haven't even talked about this publicly. I actually switched to Roland. That's like basically like my latest thing. So I have this beautiful Roland drum here in the living room. And these are great instruments. They're great tools to practice, to recordings, especially on a budget. And of course, the way they start looking now, like they're looking more and more like an acoustic drum. You can definitely use them live if you want to, but it's not completely going to replace the acoustic drum, because part of the fascination of playing an acoustic instrument is creating the sound in that moment, like being able to hit something and the sound comes out of it, right? And I don't think this is going to go away. And drums have been around, like hitting something with your hand or your stick. That's the oldest instrument in the world. So electronic drums might become more and more, or for sure actually they will become more and more commonplace, and they will maybe get to the point where you can play a live show and people will not notice. Actually we are at that point already. Like I could actually tour with the Roland kit and most of the audience would not realize it's not an acoustic drum. And so I guess like for convenience, this is gonna be more common in the future, but there will always be acoustic instruments and acoustic drums for sure. Like there's not even a question about it.
Yeah, 100% agree. I remember the first time I saw a kit where a friend of mine hit the cymbal and choked it. And that was a brand new feature. I was like, God damn it, they've evolved.
Of course they do. Yeah, and they're actually, it's amazing how far they've come, which is great for me because it allows me to practice stuff in my apartment that I can actually translate to the acoustic drum. Because back in the day when you had these rubber pads, like that was not the same thing, you know, or when the mesh head thing was new and they were too bouncy, tennis racket like bouncy, you were able to play stuff that you wouldn't be able to play on an acoustic drum. So a lot of the practice was basically for nothing. But now it translates extremely well. And that's a great thing. I love it. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming from my background, I would have actually maybe played drums a little longer if that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yeah. But
yeah, and chat, just out of curiosity, if you guys do play an instrument, let us know what it is in the chat, because I don't know if you guys agree, but I feel like that we have a ton of guitarists and very few drummers. So I'm curious to see. Oh, I see RB basses in the house, and yeah, the other thing bass that you guys play. But do let us know what you guys what if you do play an instrument, what instrument you play. But I do have a little bit of a tidbit here. Speaking of the digital world, you have a cat, and the cat has an Instagram.
Yeah, it's not my cat. It's my mom's cat, right?
Okay.
And of course, I love the cat like crazy. So in a way, it's like it's my cat, and of course, obviously, it's nobody's cat. It's its own, person. They never belong to anyone.
Yeah.
So it's my mom's cat. Whenever I'm visiting mom, like an idiot, I'm taking 500 pictures and videos of the cat because I can't stop doing it. So the pictures are usually from me. I usually put them out, but then it's my mom actually commenting and liking stuff. So any comment you see from the cat, and you have to follow the cat. It's the cutest thing in the world. Is my mom, which is also the cutest thing in the world. So yeah.
Well, we'll post a link, Julian or Derpy, if you guys can grab that link and post it in the chat, that would be fucking awesome. Because the reason why I want to mention the cat, because I have two cats. We have two rescues from Jordan. We got them tiny, and cats are an animal that you have to earn their love and respect. They don't necessarily give it out like a dog does or something. I know there's a lot of dog lovers in the chat. I'm not saying dogs are bad to you guys, but I'm just saying like the affinity for cat specific people is different.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to earn it. You have to fight for it, and you have to gain it. And it's like I love dogs too, but like dogs are like your best buddy. They're your friends. It's like much in real life, like that's your friend and your buddy, and you can go out, and if they could drink, they would go out and have a drink with you. And cats are like, yeah, like almost like that's like love, like, but you have to fight for it, like it's yeah, they're like very
like Derpy saying in the chat, and even when they like you, they can be assholes, which is true. Sure. I mean, you guys, especially the people that have been around for a while, have met both of the cats. They're usually jumping on my back somehow. I don't think any of them are here now, but they would literally just jump and try to stand on the camera during a live stream. Like it's some of the craziest things in the world. And,
yeah, so we don't have a cat here because like we're in the city, and like it would not be safe for the cat to go out for real, like because of the traffic and the cars and all that. And I didn't want to keep a cat in the apartment, but I'm thinking of maybe getting like an older rescue cat that nobody wants, and like that still would have a better time in an apartment than being somewhere in an animal shelter.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to do this to a young cat, obviously, but maybe like this, it could still be a good deed, like, but it would have to be a cat that doesn't really need to get out as much anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of city life and stuff, you said you grew up basically in the countryside, and now big city life. What's where does the heart lay? Which side of the coin?
Yeah. So it's hard to say. I think, which is a typical thing for people that grew up on more on the countryside, is a love and fascination for big cities. And I've always had that from little on. And actually the places could have not been, big enough for me in a way. So actually a place we're living now is like, it's not the biggest city in the world, but it's a really, really nice city in the southwest of Germany called Saarbrücken, which is the capital of the state we're living in. And it's also the biggest city for, I'd say, even a couple 100,000 French people, because we're right on the border. So it's much more urban than similar cities of the size. But I just, before the pandemic, I lived in London, kind of central also for 2 years. That was great. And I'd say I really prefer the city life, to be honest, because of the possibilities. I just want to be able to go out, go to a club, see a band, go have all the typical things you have in a big city. Like, I just really like that. But then, of course, it's nice to be able to go and visit mom and be on the countryside and have that too. Like, ideally, you have both in a way.
It's amazing that you said because you grew up in the countryside. Because I grew up, in the Middle East. I live in Dubai now. It's like the city of the cities.
Of course.
And if you give me $1 million and tell me go anywhere you want in the world, it'll probably be a cabin somewhere as remote as possible, close to some river of some sort. Like that's exactly where I would go because I have lived here, and this is kind of that busy lifestyle. The show is down the road. It's instinctively I wanna escape this style, which is interesting.
I think it's a clear case of the grass being greener on the other side. Like
100%.
So yeah, but like I'm still enjoying it, and I just like proper countryside. I don't know if that would ever be my thing, to be honest. But yeah.
Riz Zero said, "I need tech and stuff, and also I don't want to fight a bear." Riz, we don't mean you have to camp outside the countryside. There's a middle ground. There's a middle ground somewhere in the middle.
Sure, yeah.
I also wanted to talk about because you do a lot of things. Gem jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah.
I found out that you're. You have a jewelry kind of business going on the side. That's a completely left field from the music world.
Yeah, which is really why I love it so much. So this was like my first endeavor outside of playing drums, basically, right? Actually, I'm wearing one, of course. Like, this is one of my. The camera?
The other side.
There's yeah. There you go. Oh, now I have it. Right. Yeah. And so the thing is, it's called Gem Sessions. We should put a link in there.
Yeah.
The jewelry is made of cymbals, and it just happened one night that I was practicing, and a piece of a cymbal broke off. And I was looking at it on the floor, and I was like, hey, wait a second, this would be a great pendant. You just need to drill a hole, and you can wear it around your neck. This looks fantastic, actually. And that's how the idea was born. And I kept cracking cymbals all the time. So we had tons of broken cymbals. And we started doing this. A friend of mine and I started putting the business together. And now we have Anthrax, we have Halloween, Lacuna Coil. We have really, really cool artists in there. And we're still expanding. And it's so much fun. Of course, the pandemic has not been good for us, honestly, because the thing is with jewelry, it turns out that it's not easy to sell jewelry online because it's something that people have to touch. Mm-hmm. They have to touch and see it. And before the pandemic, we went to some festivals and it was absolutely fantastic. And we are looking forward to that, or to bands having our jewelry, on their merch stand on a tour. That's going to be great. But for now, it's just online, unfortunately. But we have a whole, lot of pendants that you can check out, and we're using original symbols. Sometimes the Halloween one are made from original symbols from Donnie. Mine are made from original symbols. So that's awesome. And it's just great to do something that's, not directly music related, but then again, it is because, it has a whole music connection with the symbols.
I was just about to say, I started by saying left field for music, but you're literally making it out of the instrument.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And the cool thing is, and this is still where I really want to go with this, like from a fan's perspective, to think, okay, this is made from a symbol that's been used on a specific recording or tour. Like you can wear like a piece of rock history around your neck. And I think this is so great. And we're still working on that. Like, so for us, the goal is also to get more and more artists and hopefully have them, send us symbols that were used on specific recordings. And then we can say, this is from this album, that album, and give the fans something really special,
Outside of the premise, like outside of the core value of it, were you ever into jewelry? Did, like 10 years ago, if I told you this was one of the things you'll be doing, was it something that you would be interested in?
No, not at all, actually. Especially not, 10 years, maybe 10 years ago. Like I said, 15 years ago. Like most dudes and most metal dudes, especially, I wasn't exactly fashionable when I was younger. Like it was band shirts and whatever, right? So the whole thing, I just grew into it, and then starting the business and like starting to wear some jewelry. That happened, of course, before I came up with this idea. Otherwise, it would have not crossed my mind. Like if it's not your thing at all, you're not thinking about it, right? Like, so I was wearing it obviously at the point already when that thing happened, that the piece broke off, and I was thinking this would be a nice pendant. But it took me a while to get there. But now I'm kind of getting into it more and more and more. And now also we're like, there's so much to it. Like we didn't realize it, but for example, it sounds stupid to anybody who's involved, or to people that are really like used to wearing jewelry. But we didn't even realize that it would make such a big difference to have chains. We started out just having bands, and now we're offering everything with chains as well. And just having chains on it makes it look so much more like jewelry, like in a typical sense. And but that's exactly why it's so much fun, because like we were not experts at all, to be honest, and now we're like growing into it, and it's fantastic.
I'm just posting for everybody in the chat that wants the link. I just posted the link to the Instagram page.
Awesome.
Right there. Make sure you check it out, because like I said, like I said, it could actually be like rock history. You know what I mean? Like it's a piece of it. And there you go. Derpy just posted the website itself, gemsessions.shop. Thank you, Derpy, for that. It's crazy, man. It's cool that you have you have this entrepreneurial kind of vibe about the stuff that you do, and I find that a lot of people that have that kind of they initiate going out and looking for different things to do rather than settling, always have it from day one. Like they've kind of always. That's why when we started talking about teaching, because I read a bunch of the stuff that you worked on and stuff like that. It's I was asking, where does that drive come from? Because the drive is kind of like you break a symbol, you're like, I'm going to start a business. You know what I mean? Yeah. It comes instinctively, kind of thing.
Well, that's a really good point. It's very important, I think. You have to understand that as a musician, especially for younger musicians, you are an entrepreneur. You are your own business. Because as much as you love music, and it should always be about the music first, but if you want to make a living from it, you have to sell yourself more or less in a way, right? So the business part is super important, and that's just something you have to have. And I've always liked that. I always liked doing that. And if you want something, you have to ask for it. You cannot wait for the world to give it to you. It's not going to happen because there's too many people and too many good people and talented people that are just as talented as you are and all that. So if you really want something, you have to make these steps, or it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. We were talking about a bunch of different things and aspects in your life that you kept mentioning, like the pandemic was bad for jewelry, but it was good for writing and going back and checking out older recordings and all that stuff. Where were you? What was going on mid-March 2020 when everything was going down? What were you receiving at that time when the world was going into lockdown?
Yeah. Okay. So actually, I just I remember returning from some shows. I was still playing until the very end, or actually at the very beginning of the pandemic, right? And I just got back from some shows in the UK, back to Germany at the time, and I remember that people started talking on the train, like about things about the pandemic, like about the virus and all that, and it was like regular people, like talking about it. I was like, this is not good. Like people are starting to talk about it. That's a bad sign, because I was always interested in things and always worried about things like that in a way that I remember like the bird flu and what was called H1N or whatever was called, and like the swine flu and whatever. Like we had like we dodged the bullet 2 times in the past 20 years, which a lot of people I think don't really remember. Like around 2003, I think it was in 2009 or something like that. And both of these times, I was watching it closely. I was thinking, this is not good. This is gonna go, south. And then it didn't happen. Fortunately, somehow people were able to contain it. So I actually was hopeful that it would be the same this time. Mm-hmm. I was a bit the boy that cried wolf for me. I was like, okay, it's not good, but they will contain it, China or something. Like it's not gonna happen. But then it happened. Like what can you do? Like and when it happened and when there was this uncertainty, like I took it very seriously immediately, because I just wanted to make sure I would not I wanted to take care of my mom first of all. And so we took it very seriously, especially in the beginning, and then of course everything was canceled, all the shows and all the touring and all that. And now I think I'm just hopeful that we are all seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now. So I'm just hoping the best for next year. I think it might get difficult one more time, to be honest, like in the fall, maybe fall, winter, and then it should be over. Like that's what everybody tells me that knows enough about these things.
Yeah. It was definitely, especially at the beginning, it was a crazy time. Everybody trying to guess, like, hey, it's gonna be 2 weeks. All right, maybe until the end of the next month. Let's wait another month, and then it just felt like it kept dragging on. But what was it like pushing the brakes for once in a very long time? You've been going strong for a very long time, and then the handbrake got lifted. What was that like?
Yeah, you see, in the year prior to that, I was gone for 200 days in that year. Wow. And it was completely insane in a way. And therefore, the funny thing is, in the beginning, it was fantastic, to be honest. I was like a relief. I was like, wow, I cannot believe this. I'm actually going to sleep in the same bed for 2 weeks. And wow, I finally have time to practice. Because at the time, like you just said, we all thought that this would be over within a few months. And I was fortunate that it was at the end of a touring cycle, because I'm not sure people are aware of it, but as a musician, when your income basically comes from touring, you think in touring cycles. So you have a touring cycle of maybe 1.5 years or 2 years, and then you kind of have to manage with that money for maybe another year until the next starts sometimes, right? And so fortunately, I was at the end of that touring cycle. So financially, it was okay for me. And even a year before that, or a year and a half before that, this could have been very different. But that was just my luck in that case, right? So financially, it was not a big deal. And at first, and then it was just great to have a little bit of a break. But then, of course, that break turned out to be way too long. You know.
Yeah. And
I just started realizing how much I miss the stage and how much I miss my friends and playing to the fans and meeting people and all that. It's just yeah.
I was just gonna say, even attending shows for me, just being able to hear live music. I've gotten withdrawal symptoms from just not listening to live music for the longest time in my entire life since I was a kid. It was it still is one of the craziest experiences. But like you were saying, there was a lot of positive. You guys got a lot of stuff done.
The whole streaming platform thing would have not happened without the pandemic. That's for sure. For example, right? Like, because we had the time to sit down and think about these things, and we also were suddenly faced with a situation where we understood that maybe it was a mistake to give up on making money from recorded music. You know, we kind of gave up on that idea, to be honest. Like I did, in a way. Like, it was like, okay, I'm gonna make money on the road, because that's how things are nowadays. And so that forced us to rethink things, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, this entire thing, Unmuted in general, started April or May 2020, of just sitting around for a while going, I have cool friends that are creative. Let's ask them some questions, and you know, I get to learn a little thing. I spend some time having good conversations, and they get some content out of it, you know. And it turned into this whole other world. That February, if you told me in February 2020 this is what I would be spending my time doing, I'll tell you that I don't even know a single thing about this. You know what I mean? So it does have its ups and downs. So. It has been a crazy time, and I want to ask the chat. By the way, you guys, do you remember the moment where you found out about? Like, now we're saying it like it's second nature, you know, lockdown and quarantine. I've never used those fucking words before, unless it was in a lyric. I've never used those words before.
That's what I'm thinking all the time. I'm like, how on earth do I know so much about vaccines now? And like, we're all putting on medical masks like we're doctors. Like everybody does it with an ease now, obviously, right? Like,
yeah.
It's insane. Like, it's such a big difference. Guys, I just need a minute. I need to go and get the charger, or otherwise this thing is gonna turn off. I'll be with you in a minute.
I'll read the chat until you're back. But yeah, you guys, we're winding down anyway. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the redeem. There's a question redeem in the thing. We're gonna ask a bunch of your questions, and then we're gonna head over to Uncle Julian's house. Julian's gonna be playing a bunch of the stuff that Alex has worked on, a bunch of the you know, music that or bands that he's worked with. So get ready for that. It's gonna be a party over there. Like I said, if you have any questions, I see a bunch of questions in the chat. Audio only for me, peeps. Oh no, Craggers, I'm sorry about that. Oh, I see what you did, Rami, and that word is banned from this channel now. I only thought about it before while fantasizing about a zombie apocalypse. Which word is banned? Yeah, try to say the largest favorite band. That happens. There you go, Rami. There you go. But like I said, you guys, if you have, I still got your question, so I might ask it. But
all right, back here.
We'll see. Awesome. We're back. So we have a bunch of questions from the tribe that I want to get to, but. Before we do, you mentioned you've just finished recording a brand new album. Is there anything you can give us in terms of timeline or anything like that? How it was for you?
Well, of course, this was like I just finished recording the new Kamelot album, and I really don't know when it's going to come out. Like, honestly, I don't know, right? It's going to come out sometime next year, that's for sure. I'd say first half, that's pretty sure as well. But I really don't have any specific dates or anything. And this was really fun and really weird in a good way, because obviously it was a remote recording. Mm-hmm. And it was my first recording with Kamelot. And so what we had to do there was, instead of like, as you would usually just like whatever, book a studio for 5 days or something, I was in a fortunate position that I could record over the span of almost a month or even 6 weeks or something, like every few days, like, you know, like we would do a song Monday, another song on Thursdays or something. And there was lots of time. And just, you know, get some feedback from the other guys, give them some options. Hey, you guys like that beat, that groove, like, what do you like better, you know? Because it's pretty democratic in a way. And like, which is nice, because it also means that I actually have a lot of freedom creatively, but it also means that I had to take into consideration what everybody else was thinking. So we did that, and the cool thing is that I could produce with one of my oldest friends, Phil Hillen, S02 Studios here in Germany, and he's fantastic. And I'm so glad that he's, you know, that we're able to do these things now, because it's just the easiest thing. Like during this pandemic, it's where it was, you know, virtually impossible for me to go somewhere else. I could just record with him, and finally he's getting the recognition he would have deserved long ago for his studio, because he has a great sounding room, and he just knows what he does. So yeah, we were doing this now, and it's been really interesting. And I've tried to push, you know, the limits of what's possible. Like I said, it's not easy if the band has been around for really long. Like, then there's expectations, and you know, there's only so much you can do. But I think it turned out great, and everybody's happy about that. And yeah, I wish I could talk more. Like, I did some insane recordings. I basically I recorded one of the probably biggest albums of next year, but at this I had to sign an NDA. I can't even talk about it until it comes out. And that's also happened. And yeah.
No, that's cool. And I think everybody listening to this and tuning in live already knows that how that stuff goes. But I have to ask a question. They'll bust my balls if I don't. They'll let me know that I didn't ask the questions. But yeah, I'm very stoked for that. And like you said, it's serving the song, serving the band kind of thing. So you're building on a foundation that's already existing, but adding your own touches. I think that's one of the coolest things. I'm very, very much excited, looking forward to that. Usually, what last question I like to ask is kind of a deep dive, and chat. You know how awkward I like to get. I like to kill the background music, and I like to. I just want to build this up a little bit. He's going to be so disappointed in the question. Thank you, Derpy, for changing the lights. If you had a time machine and you were able to go back in time to young Alex, just getting into Queen, figuring out the instrument, and you were able to tell young Alex something from the years of experience you've had, what would that thing be?
That's a big one. That's a big one. You mean musically, or like anything? Like, let's stick with music, I guess. I would tell young Alex, you are going to make music, and you're going to want to create your own music, and try even harder, because the music industry will collapse when you're still really young, and you can only be super successful if you make it before that. That's probably what I would tell myself.
I mean, that's one of the craziest things, right? You wouldn't have thought that this would be the case. This would be the case for Junda. We got the claps.
No,
the thing I like to ask whenever I ask someone this question is, would young you listen to yourself?
No, of course not. No.
The big old flip off the old guys, I'll do what I want anyway kind of attitude has always existed.
Yeah, but if you think about it, like, I know this is like just theoretical, but it's so this would be so dangerous. Can you imagine, like, for real now, like young me, knowing that things would turn out kind of okay, like, I would make it and, be a drummer and all that. Maybe that would take away, like, the eye of the tiger,
the drive, yeah. Absolutely, and it's we talked about I talked about this with Mark Hunter from Chimera. Is it the Back to the Future kind of going back in time, or where you change the line of events, or is it you going back in time and it's already a cyclical nature where this is a result of that? And I told him, no, this is a Back to the Future line. So you can go back in time and actually change what happens if that was the theory we're working on. And the possibilities were endless. It's like, what if I told him to, work harder and as a result fucked everything up?
Sure. You would never know, even with personal stuff. And I don't want to go too depressing on this, but I think everybody has personal stuff in their lives, like, where close family members died or stuff like that, and then you're like, okay, I wish I could just go back and change those things, and tell people to be more careful, or go and see a doctor in time, or whatever, But the truth is, you never know how it would really pan out, like the consequences of it,
Yeah, absolutely.
That specific thing would be great. You could change that, but then maybe because of that, you would get into a car accident the day after or something. Like, you never know. You can drive yourself crazy with these things, but yeah. I started asking this question like episode 3 of season 1, and I've done, this is episode 15, so 115 episodes. Not a single answer has been repeated so far, which I think is absolutely amazing. If you ask 115 different people, what would you tell your younger self? The conversation that sparks, like ours, like some people just answered the question based on that, but the butterfly effect. We're basically talking about the butterfly effect as a result of that question, which I think is very fucking cool. Absolutely, yeah.
Dude, I wanna say thank you so much for your time. I know sitting down and having a conversation for 2 hours is a hefty one, and like we were talking about earlier, generation-wise, it's not something that is very common these days. But thanks to these maniacs that are in the chat, thanks to the patrons and the subscribers and everyone that's supporting this channel, it's made possible. And these guys sit around and listen to us talk for 2 hours. So I think it's pretty fucking cool. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, man. This is amazing.
Well, yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure. It's been so much fun talking to you. So it's like, the time just flew by. But this is the exact opposite of a 15-second TikTok video. Exactly. So
this is the exact opposite. The exact opposite. I'm gonna do one last power round of questions from the tribe. I always ask this, but what is the craziest story from a show or tour?
Oh man. So okay, like I can give you like a super stupid thing that happened on stage. Stupid, not crazy, but we played in Minneapolis with Rhapsody, and there's like these big symphonic arrangements. So obviously we don't have an orchestra with us, so that's all from the MacBook, right? Or most of it, right? And for sound check, our engineer, great guy, he put a loop to one of the tracks.
I think we got Alex is stuck. Alex is stuck. Let's give him a little bit. Let's see if we can rejoin. Let me check that. King of Whitewater, what's going on, my friend? Thank you for being part of the tribe. First time chatter here. Have you had the chance to play live yet, Alex? Let me try and get that question in as well. We had a question queue opened up that is currently paused, but we'll see if we can get him back on here and up and running again. There we go, Alex. You back?
Okay, I just had to reboot or had to turn off and on Wi-Fi. Okay, so I'll start again.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so it might not be the craziest thing, but it's crazy stupid. We played with Rhapsody in Minneapolis, and we had, obviously, with Rhapsody being so symphonic, we had lots of stuff coming from the MacBook, which you can't avoid. It's not because the band can't play, but you don't have an orchestra. Yeah. And our sound guy, he had this one bit that he looped for sound check, and to dial in the PA, and then he forgot to turn off the loop. So we're playing like the first song, and we get to that portion where it loops, and the thing starts looping, I can't believe this, So we had to stop and start over, and that was like immediately showing like how stupid it is to be too dependent on technology. Like this is something that it would have not happened to Deep Purple, I guess, in '71. But yeah, so that was that. And I mean, like crazy tour stories. Oh man, like touring can be so crazy as a whole sometimes. Like we had great times on tour. I remember, especially like touring with when I took with Stratovarius. One time, I think we played in. Let me think about it for a second. It was Stockholm, and we went to a show afterwards. To a Hard Rock Superstar. They played so late that we could just go there after a show, and we went with a Finnish ice hockey NHL player, and this guy was just throwing rounds and just basically paying for the whole place. And that was like basically I remember I got so extremely hammered with a NHL ice hockey star, and it's like you would think this is a sports guy and he doesn't drink, but quite the contrary. And I remember that, and like with everything that everything that happened afterwards on the bus, in terms of like I made like whatever puking in my bunk, sort of. And like this is like
the aftermath.
The aftermath, yeah, and like so I think in a way I think it's crazy. What's crazy? Like it's in a way it's super controlled what we do nowadays in so many ways, because the standard is so high. Yeah. We are required to function at a really, really high standard because of all the technology that's involved, because of everybody filming, like putting up their cell phone and filming us, and if we fuck something up, it's on YouTube the next day. So I think it's much less crazy than whatever touring with Motley Crue in '86. But yeah, we're still having fun and it's still great. But yeah, I wish I could have thought of something really crazy, but unfortunately, nothing super special comes to mind now. I'll give it some thought for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is pretty crazy with the ones you did come up with. One more question. There's apart from yourself, it's Vangeli22. Thank you so much for the resub. Apart from yourself, obviously, who do you think are the three best drummers in metal, dead or alive?
Oh, that's super difficult. The three best drummers in metal. Oh my God. Okay, because that's always a thing. Like there's this a certain being influential can be super important too, right? Like let's say like people like to bash Lars Ulrich, but he's super influential, and like so many people would not be where they are without him. So I've never bought into that, and but obviously he's not like the best or anything. Personally, I'd say Nick Mensa, Megadeth. Nick was just one of a kind in the way that he mixed a technical playing, especially for the time being, with a lot of groove, a lot of swing and musicality, and he made it look effortless, and it was just absolutely fantastic. So that will be absolutely one that's right there. I think of the modern players. Oh man, there's so many of them. There's so many great drummers. It's so hard to just pick a few names. I think Eloy Casagrande is absolutely astonishing.
Heavy hitter, and still a lot of finesse, a lot of technique. Wonderful time. I mean, he's just absolutely fantastic. Because it's always great when I see somebody and I'm like, there's no way in the world I could have done this better than this person. Like it'd be great if I could do it just as good. That's like the maximum that can be done there. But there's not a way of doing something better, So that would be one of these cases. And man, there's so much to it. And it would be way easier if I could pick like genres. Like if I could pick and even then it would be difficult. Like picking the 3 progressive dudes, 3 and 3, and even then it would be impossible. So third name, who's absolutely astonishing. Oh man. No, it's like I can't even pick another name. I'd say without giving it too much thought, I'd say another good friend of mine, Mario Duplantier, Gojira, absolutely incredible. Yeah. Absolutely insane.
But then there's like this whole array of technical, especially the technical death metal and black metal side. And then again, some of these dudes are just unreal,
Yeah, absolutely.
Musically, it might not be the most creative thing sometimes, or it can be very specific, just fast. But then again, it is sometimes so fast that you just have to appreciate it for what it is.
Absolutely. And for myself, I want to add to that pile. I would just add Joey Jordison from Slipknot. The late Joey Jordison. In terms of influential for that generation, was beyond influential for the instrument.
I mean, the thing that Joey did is he brought a lot of the elements of extreme metal drumming to a general audience.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And this was the first time that many people heard a blast beat or something, and you have to give him credit for that, and you have to give him credit for bringing the drums to the front of it, like being this visible and important member of the band, which is always an outstanding achievement if somebody can do that. Much like Portnoy. I mean, you can say what you want about him, but Portnoy is a great drummer, a great character, and so technically, it's how do you judge these things, what's really what's the level here? What is it just about technicality? Is it about raw speed, musicality? There's so many elements to it.
There is.
People can be great for so many reasons,
The instrument itself is so dynamic and so diverse that, like you said, it's been since the dawn of man. Basically, people have been drumming, so it's very hard to just be like, this is the best.
And there's people that are just irreplaceable. And again, Lars Ulrich. I mean, I would not want to replace him. It's like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
It's pointless. Nico McBrain, Sure, there's a lot of kids that can play faster single strokes than Nico, or faster double bass, especially because he just plays one. But Nico's Nico. How about, it would be pointless to play for Iron Maiden. All you could actually do would be copying him, everything else would be idiotic, and that would be idiotic in itself. So And this is great too. If somebody's so, if somebody's irreplaceable, or if you cannot copy somebody, like Neil Peart, obviously not a metal drummer, but that would be progressive or progressive rock. But what a guy.
Absolutely. And Derpy, hopefully that answers your question. I think we dug a little deep into that, and I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it's a very difficult thing to kind of saying what are your top favorite 3 albums. It changes every day. I don't know. Svengali 22 says Chris Adler and Tommy Lee. See, like that for me wouldn't. Chris Adler is absolutely amazing. Tommy Lee is absolutely amazing, but different criteria, I think is the word. I see a lot of you guys in the chat asking about jam sessions. So jamsessions.shop, if you guys are listening to the audio, if you're listening to this after we stream live, and it's also in the chat right now. Svengali 22 is asking about it. Riz Zero saying the pendants are very cool. I want to get one. Go for it, bro. Go for it. Post it in the Discord. Let us know that you guys got them.
Awesome.
Muna says Tommy Aldridge, Danny Carey from Four Derpy Paws, Neil Peart, Rush. Yeah, I always mess up with the last names, but thank you guys so much for sticking around. Thank you guys for all the questions and hanging out. And Alex, like I said, thank you so much for your time, my dude. We got to do this again once things open up, and we got to get you down to the Middle East. You got to play a show in Dubai at some point. We're gonna make that happen.
I would totally love to, and it's one of the places that I haven't been to yet, and I always wanted to go. So that's for sure. And absolutely, I'll come back when we can talk more about the streaming service. When hopefully I can talk about these albums that I mentioned that I've recorded that I can't talk about yet. And there's some other actually pretty big things that I also can't talk about, which is of course something I could be making up now. But it's actually true.
But I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I love the conversation. I love having you on here. And like I said, time flew by. We used to have a tradition on the show where to officially end the episode, the guest would have to be the one to say hit the outro, and that would commence the end of the show. But for the very first time, we're gonna ask you to do it in your most specific way possible, like in your branded way. So, however you want to do it, in whatever way you want to do it.
I'll be super geeky. So it's gonna be drumming and Star Trek at the same time, and
drumming and Star Trek.
Yeah, which would be Captain Picard, and this would be Engage.